Assessment plays an important role in the learning process. From elementary to high school, we experienced many kinds of assessments that shaped how we learned and improved. And these experiences gave us a better understanding of how different assessments work and how they affect students differently.
Enumerate and discuss the different assessment methods and tools utilized by your teacher in elementary and high school. Based on our experience in elementary and high school, we were exposed to different assessment methods and tools used by our teachers. These assessments help us realize how we learn best. One of the most common methods was the traditional assessment, which include paper and pencil or pen and paper tests. These were usually in the form of quizzes, exams, or worksheets. Teachers would either give the printed test directly or read the questions out loud while we wrote the answer on a paper.
Another kind of assessment we often encountered was the speed test. These tests had a strict time limit and focused on how fast we could think and answer. A few examples are the A1, M1, D1, and S1 tests. These were used in subjects like math and spelling, and we had to answer as many items as we could within the given time. These tests helped us improve our focus and timing, but they were also stressful for some students.
Aside from traditional and speed tests, we also experience authentic assessment. These are the tests where students are asked to apply what they have learned in real life or practical situation. For example, in our physical education class, we were given an assignment to perform a Filipino folk dance. We were not only judged on how we performed the steps, but also on how well we understood and expressed the cultural and historical meaning of the dance. Through this test, we got to show our creativity and learn to value our own culture more.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of these assessment methods? To cite a concrete example. Each assessment method has its own strengths and weaknesses, and the impact depends on how it is used in the classroom. Traditional assessments are easy for teachers to check and grade. For example, during our math class in grade 6, we would have weekly quizzes made up of multiple choice and problem solving questions. These were graded weekly and we would get the results the next day. These help us know which topics we needed to study more. However, the disadvantage is that traditional tests often focus only on memorization. I remember during our Filipino class in grade 9, we had to memorize a poem and answer a question about it. Some students, including myself, just memorized the lines without really understanding the meaning. These tests did not help us develop critical thinking or creativity.
Also, when teachers read the questions aloud without showing them visually, it will help only those who were good at listening or had strong verbal skills. For visual learners like me, it was hard to catch up and think quickly. I remember one time in our science class, the teacher read a 10-item quiz aloud and we had to answer immediately. I found it difficult to process the question without seeing them written down, which affected how I answered.
Speed tests help assess how quickly students can think and recall information in grade 4. We used to have daily multiplication drills. We have to finish 50 multiplication items in 3 minutes. This helped improve our speed, but it also made some students nervous. There were classmates who knew the answer but could not finish on time because they panicked, and this way, the test didn't always reflect what students really knew.
Speed tests also don't give enough time for students who need to think carefully. They push for fast answer rather than deep understanding. This is a disadvantage especially for students who process information at slower pace but still have a good grasp of the lesson.
Authentic assessments allow students to show what they have learned by doing real tasks. These types of assessment are more effective because they encourage students to think critically, solve problems, and be creative. One good example was during our English class in junior high school, where we were asked to create a short play based on the story we read. We had to write a script, assign roles, and perform it in front of the class. This activity helped us understand the story deeply as we had to act out the characters and emotions. It was also fun and memorable.
Another example was during our science investigatory project in grade 9. We formed groups and conducted simple experiments using local materials. My group studied the effects of azolla plants as food additives on the growth of chickens. We made a report, prepared visuals, and explained our results to the class. This project taught us how to work as a team, do research, and present our findings. Although it took more time and effort, we learned much more than we would have from a test alone.
However, authentic assessments also have challenges. Some students may not have enough resources at home to complete big projects. Also, the grading of these tasks can sometimes feel unfair. If the rubric is not clear, students may not know what the teacher expects. One classmate felt that she deserved a higher grade for her performance task in music because she practiced a lot, but the rubric and feedback was not explained well.
While authentic assessment give meaningful learning experience, they must be supported with fair rubrics and enough guidance from teachers. It is important to balance them with other methods to ensure fairness and learning for all students.
Speed tests measure thinking under time pressure, and authentic assessment help us apply what we learn in real life situations.
All these methods can be useful if we use at the right time and in the right way.
As students, we benefit most when assessments are fair, clear, and match how we learn best.
Teachers should consider students' learning styles and the goals of the lesson when choosing how to assess.
This way, assessments become not just a test of memory, but a real part of learning.